How's it going? Welcome to Unstoppable. And my name is Gus. And if you haven't yet, I want to encourage you to subscribe to this channel so you can follow along to the episodes that are coming after this and just get into the journey and get into the story of what we're getting into. And today, what we're going to be talking about is looking at Nick's journey in regards to his speaking, because there are very, very few people, Nick, that I can say, and I think anybody can look this up, who have the resume that you have regarding your speaking journey. You know, and I've heard the stories, and I think today I want to go a little bit behind the scenes, behind the curtain, and just like, because it's one thing to speak and have so many engagements, but you know, right now what I think what we're seeing with social media is that random people, to some extent, have a platform, but there's no character behind it. There lacks some, you know, like actual depth behind their stories, and people are crafting it through AI now. You have an actual story. You have an actual journey. And it started with, correct me if I'm wrong, his name is Arnold, your janitor, right, from Australia. And he told you that simple phrase. And that's a little bit of where I think I want to start. It's like, he told you, like, Nick, you're going to be a speaker. And you're like, what are you talking about, right? Like, and so that's what I want to talk about. And then also just some practical steps on, like, how does somebody even craft their message?
Yeah.
Like, and truth be told, not everybody's meant to be a speaker.
Right. 100%. So first and foremost, I'm glad that we can, unpack this, because now in my 40s, more and more looking to inspire more people without traveling and helping people understand that we do all have a story. But in context of what you're saying, I think over the last 5 to 7 years, especially, there's been this movement that everyone's become a speaker, everyone's become a coach, everyone's become an author.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow. I mean, because when you first got a book deal pre-2010, the publishing world was very, very different. And I'm very thankful that I was able to, get a publishing deal back then. And that was because of the resume of traveling all around the world and being a speaker that can be in front of young people, being a speaker that can be in front of corporate executives, billionaires, wealth management people, insurance company salespeople, and presidents. And that resume continued in even national government addresses. And I never thought that I'd be able to shake the hands of presidents and being in front of so many people, 11 million people, 3,500 stages, 87 countries. And just a couple of weeks ago, we did a tour in Central America and was able to speak in front of tens of thousands of people, but millions online, and meeting Prime Minister and President of the countries there, and had the privilege of meeting Bukele from El Salvador, the president there. And that was inspiring, and to have 45 minutes behind closed doors. So back then, I never thought that I would be a speaker, and even realizing that I had a story. Yeah. As I've traveled around the world, let me just bring this point home. We all have a story, and we all can be a miracle when we don't get one ourselves. And so what does that mean? As I've traveled and hugged and met so many people, from sex slavery to orphans to people dying of cancer, the reason why we can become unstoppable is our faith, knowing that death itself is not the end, but also realizing that we are not here just to survive and to experience, but to make a difference in the world in some way, shape, or form, in a positive manner. And that's when everyone can participate in understanding that your history is your story, and there's not another story like yours. And so many people come up to people and say, you need to write a book, you need to write a book, you need to write a book. Can I just tell you, if someone's said that, you need to write a book. Because you don't know what your story can do for someone else. And whether it's in a book form or crafting your message and becoming a polished speaker, well-known, or an influencer or a podcaster, whatever that looks like and morphs into, that doesn't matter. I think the question is, do you realize what your story is? Have you heard your own story?
That's good. Yeah.
And I think what we do need to do sometimes is sit down and reflect, like, what are the monumental pillars that made me who I am today? What are the difficult struggles that did build my character into who I am today? And until Arnold the janitor came into my life and stopped me in my tracks, and I'll get into that story in a second, I didn't think about the story. We're just going through life. We're going through routine.
Right.
Life gets busier and busier and faster. And all you're trying to do is block and tackle, going through the rhythms of life and school and the questions of life. And I think once you go through an obstacle, you kind of want to forget it, but you rob yourself of beautiful nuggets of encouragement and wisdom and reflection in, I'm not the same person I was a year ago or 6 months ago. Look at those lessons I did learn. And realizing that everyone has a story, but everyone also has obstacles, and how could your story encourage someone else? And so I had the same reaction as anybody when someone came up to me, Arnold the janitor, and said, "You have a story to share." I said, "No, I don't." And the reason why he came and confronted me on that was, at that time at age 17, I was vice president of my high school, Runcorn State High School, and I had a speech. And I don't know what I really talked about, but it was general motivation and kind of like a hoorah thing and just some word of encouragement. I don't remember what the speech was, but he listened to it, and it was 1,400 students from
this
grade
was at your high school.
From grade 8 to 12. And we know that the biggest fear in the world is public speaking. The second biggest fear in the world is death. So some people would actually rather die than become a public speaker. And I was speaking, but I also though felt like it was something I could compete in. And so I was good at oral presentations at school, and I felt like I could encourage other people at that, and I could do that much better than throw a football. And so it was though surprising that the next day or the couple days after that speech that I addressed the entire school, Arnold, in his 60s back then, he came up to me, and I recognized him. I didn't really get to know him at that point yet. And he said, "Hey, I saw you speak." I said, "Oh, good." He said, "You were really good." I said, "Well, thank you." He said, "No, I need to ask you." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Are you a Christian?" And I said, "Yes, I'm a Christian." It was a public school, and in my encouragement, I couldn't use, the swear word Jesus Christ, as that is in public schools. But he could tell that, and I said, "I am a Christian." And he said, "That was a lovely speech, and I believe God has a special plan for you." I said, "Oh, thank you." He said, "No, I think he wants to take you all around the world and share your story with the world." Now, he's not the first person that said God's going to use you, or the first person to say you're going to meet presidents. My Uncle Sam, when I was 13 years old, he said, "One day you're going to shake hands with presidents." But Arnold took it all the way. He said, "You've got a story. God's going to take you around the world, and I want to organize your first speech." I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "You have a story." I said, "No, I don't." He says, "Yes, you do." And we don't think that our story is anything. Like, even if we could say something about our story, we don't think of ourselves as special at all.
Right.
And he said, "Would you please allow me to get together some students on a Friday lunch and you just share your story?" I'm thinking, I don't even know what this guy's on about. Like, what story is he talking about? I don't know anything, of what I've learned of my story, and so many negative voices. Straight away, I'm like, this guy's just a crazy old man.
Yeah.
I said, "No, thank you." And I walked away. And the next day he came and he said, "Nick." I said, "What?" He said, "Please." "What?" said, I want you to share your story and let me organize this speech. And let me get this some Christian, students. And he said, nah, man, like, you're high. I'm thinking, like, this guy's high. He's on drugs. He's just crazy, old man. And he was persistent. And he wouldn't let it go. And so I'm like, all right, fine. Let me just say yes to him, and I'll do it, and I can move on. And he organized it a couple months later. And it was only like 5-6 students. And actually in public speaking, when it's a smaller group these days, I was more nervous than the big crowd. I don't know why, because you could really read people's body language, and you're like, oh.
And they're in so close proximity.
So close. And you're like, oh, maybe they didn't like that sentence, or maybe I should have reworded it from the crowd. You're like, I'm just going to speak to the crowd.
Right.
And so, my palms were sweating, my knees were shaking. I didn't know what to say. And they gave me like 7 minutes, and people started crying. And I'm thinking, seriously, my first reaction when I saw that girl first cry, I'm thinking, oh, she feels sorry for me. She wants me to feel like it was good, and she's emotionally moved. I'm thinking, you don't have to fake that. Like, I'm thinking, like, don't do that. Like, that's seriously what I thought.
Yeah.
But then they were like conversing with one another and reflecting, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, something happened, and those tears are authentic. Why do people cry? I remembered when Reggie Dabbs came to my school, the same school, Runcorn State High School, on a Friday afternoon, and he came there, and I could tell that he was a Christian. He couldn't say the swear word Jesus Christ, and he, though, moved all of us. And I'm looking right, looking left, and I'm like, what a cool job that would be. You get paid to travel from Florida to Australia, and you get paid and make a living to actually give people hope. And hope is priceless. I mean, that sounds like a really cool job. And back then I was considering, am I a financial planner? Am I going to be an accountant? My dad wants me to do business. And I'm like, wait a second, Reggie, maybe I do have a good enough story. And that was what I thought back at 13 years of age. I said, maybe one day I'll have a good enough story to share like Reggie. But I didn't think much more of it. But when Arnold gave me this opportunity and I saw these people cry, the exchange of hope, when it's real, it moves people. And you're built of a soul, spirit, mind, body. Soul, spirit, mind, body. And you can add heart if you want, but the emotional, mental, spiritual part of who you are is who you are. You are a living being made of these things that people and circumstances affect, either negatively or positively. And you have a choice of these thoughts that come in your mind based on your circumstances, your thoughts and feelings, what your actions are, your decisions, your resolve is about your identity, your purpose. Is there hope for you too? Is there a purpose at all to this life? Which is then philosophically discovering what are your beliefs about you, about the world, about life itself, life after death, your effect of other people, their effect on you. And I realized hope is everything at that moment. Yeah, I could be an accountant, I could be a financial planner, that's great. But to give people hope and seeing them receive hope, as one person that at age 10 tried to give up because I convinced myself there was none, it was just an incredible day of my life. And I thanked Arnold profusely for that opportunity. They got my number. Churches heard about me. Can you come to the youth group? Can you come to the church and start speaking? And so between ages 17 and 19, I did 12 speeches around Brisbane, Southeast Queensland. And that's when I met Jim Huck. And he opened up doors for me, and Youth Alive, they opened up doors for me, and did bigger arenas and bigger churches along the way between ages 19 and 23. So between 17 and 23, I actually reached 25% of the entire city population face to face.
Wow.
And at that time, I still did my accounting and financial planning degree. My parents didn't give me any choice but to do that as a plan B. Yeah. But, if I wanted to pursue it, that, you go for it. And so I never thought it would become what it is. When I did feel it was much bigger, which is in 2002, I didn't realize though how quick all that would come. I mean, I'm only 42, and to see what's happened, it's just been incredible. But the principle's the same. We all have a story. And I feel like a part of our purpose on earth is to share our story, to encourage just that one person along the way. And I'll finish with this part, with this sentence. I've said it before maybe, but it's so important. You can count how many seeds there are in an apple, but you can't count how many apples come from that one seed. And just the exponential, unthinkable, unfathomable magnitude of hope and the effect and ripple effect that our story could have, or being a listening ear, or trying to relate to someone, or at least just being a friend to someone. But sharing your story is amazing. And I feel like we have a passion. There's always people with different passions and gifts and talents. And like you said, we're not all supposed to be authors, speakers, podcasters, but we all have a responsibility to share our story with someone. And the impact's just been incredible. And it's been humbling. It's been humbling.
That's like what, the 25-year overnight success.
Yeah.
That's what that is. But I mean, in light of that, I don't want anybody who's like joining us today to miss it, because, right now we have social media, and one post can make someone go viral.
Yeah.
And they can miss the opportunity to build character, which is I was talking about earlier. Yeah. But you have that opportunity to do that. And we spoke about this in more in depth in a few episodes back when we spoke about resilience.
Yep.
And you gave a little bit more insight into your life, into like how you grew up, and some of those things that built you and got you to some thoughts that many of us don't get into until our 20s, but you got there when you were in your early teens.
Yeah.
And that built some character, that built some grit, that built some resilience, what we were talking about. And that's what many people want to miss, or we get the viral post and we like, I'm just going to go out there and put myself out there. But and the reason why I'm bringing that up is because you're talking about what moved you, correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that you saw that your words, your life were able to bring somebody hope. And that doesn't just happen just because of words, because anybody can do that now and speak it, but you actually had something that you carried that gave people that hope, right? And you got it from Arnold. You got that hope from Arnold.
Well, we got the hope from God.
Yes.
But God used Arnold to encourage me and spark that ignition. Right. Yep.
Yes, that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
But for me, that's like a no-brainer. That's I do mean that.
But if there are people who don't,
no, that's great. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So God inspired.
Yep.
Arnold spoke those words to you.
Yep.
And now God inspired. You are giving that hope to others as well, for people to feel. Yeah. And it's not even, I don't think you were doing call to actions like you could be a speaker, but you were giving them like, hey, you can get through this. What you're getting through.
It was all about hope. It was all about resilience. And so if you look at a tree, if something sprouts from the ground and it's not an established trunk, you could be a flash in the pan, as it would be said. And you can't give what you haven't known. You can't give out of what you don't have. And so if it's not authentic, I think authenticity and sincerity is the key. And as you authentically have been galvanized in your journey as a man or a woman, that trunk then becomes branches. It doesn't go from a trunk to the leaves. Mm-hmm. And so the way that I would kind of illustrate it is, what are the 5 branches of your life that you've developed, or that were really defined and birthed out of pain or struggle or questioning or whatever, or your strengths or your gifts or whatever that is. There's always going to be lessons more learned in more difficult times than bad. And I think there's so many salespeople out there and people that just want to, one of my friends calls it sound bite-itis, where they just sound bites, right? Yep. And they just share the sound bite that they just heard. And echoing and reverberating what someone else said, it's not going to last. So you got to first and foremost go back to reflection. What are the 5, kind of defining time moments of your life? Maybe you're older, maybe you have more lessons on top of that, but there are normally only 4 or 5 main things that you could ever bring to a message that are personalized. And so it's not about you talking about you only or just a principle for the sake of principle, but it's based on the audience as well. Where are they at? Where's their age? Right. Where's their mentality? What's the, if you're being invited as a speaker, what's the theme? What's your value add to that? And so being able to pivot that way. And so many people ask me, so how did you prepare for your speech? And I actually wrote out my story. I actually envisioned that I would be in an auditorium one day. And it was actually an auditorium that I actually ended up doing a speech in 7 years later, which was 3,000 seats, which is unfathomable.
Which one was that?
That was at the South Bank Piazza in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, a long time ago. And so I said, God, help me to write out my, and so I was almost just like a movie of just picturing me at a stage in front of an audience and just saying, hi, my name is Nick, and just wrote it out word for word. And then read it out and read it again. I know it sounds stupid, but you got to first discover your story. Yeah. The points they're in, and then you got to learn your story. And I actually had palm cards. I don't have palms, but I had palm cards where, there were bullet points in bringing structure. I'd be known as the guy that hates structure. I just go with the, Nick wings it, but I go with the heart, go with the mind, but some bullet points along the way to kind of craft that structure. You need that structure. So there's your story, there's the structure of it, and then there's the whole opportunity part. What does that opportunity look like? Is it a book? Is it a podcast? Is it one-off speakers? Is it a series of books? Is it a masterclass? Whatever that looks like. But then there's a science to speaking. And I have to make mention of this. The person of persons on planet Earth who's still alive today, John Maxwell. In 2002, I was at a Hillsong Christian conference in front of 27,000 people, and I was attending at the very back. And John Maxwell was speaking, and he had everyone on the edge of their seats. I mean, you could hear a pin drop on carpet. Like, it was amazing. Like, we were all like, and we were hanging on every single word. And towards the end, he got on one knee and he leans in like this. And everyone was like, wow. And that's when I knew, when he closed it and everyone stood up and roared and then applause, that was when I knew that you could be a master communicator. And one day we should get John on this show. He'd do it for me.
That'd be awesome.
John, come. Next time you're in Dallas.
We're going to send that clip to him.
I'll do it. We'll do it. We should be able to get him here in the studio in February, actually. John's incredible, and we've done some things together. Very thankful. But he was the guy.
Which is crazy to think.
Now,
2002. Sorry, because you're gonna go brush right over that.
No,
You're like,
I'm friends with that guy.
Like, this guy inspired me. Like, man, you could be an excellent communicator. You're like, we've done things together.
Right. I forget. Right.
It's so casual for you.
Which is the craziest thing.
I was like, you can't just go over that.
So let me then unpack that. And so anyway, so he was the guy that God used to be like, okay, God. And I said this to God at that moment. This is age 19. This is when I got baptized, ordained as a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Bought the URL www. Right after that, it was 2 weeks after that, because then I was going to Africa after that.
Yeah.
because of a DVD that I did do. Just like, okay, yeah, which one do you want to unpack first? So, goodness. So what happened was January in 2002, I got baptized. March, April, I think, in 2002, I realized that the only way to reach the world at that time, there was no YouTube, was DVD. I spent $2,700, $500, $2,750 on my own money to get a production company to go to Toowoomba Church in Queensland, preached 3 times, edited 1 service, put it in a DVD, did some things, and thanks to Luke out there, helped me to put this together. And that DVD went into Christian bookstores. I went into a Christian bookstore, did a consignment deal, put a little shelf up there. The DVDs were flying off the shelf. People started black marketing it. People started sending it overseas. And then July comes, and I'm ready to go to South Africa because someone in South Africa got the DVD and said, come over, let's go to South Africa. I said, turned to my brother and said, hey, let's take some cash, give some money to the orphans. Let's go do 36 speaking engagements. Come with me, and we'll give half the money away, whatever we earn there, and give it away as well. But it was that July that I knew I was meant to go to the world. And so John Maxwell, I said to God in that moment when I saw John Maxwell up on that stage, I said, God, if I'm ever a speaker, I want to be as good as him. And he laughs now backstage. You can ask him. He's quoted this again. And he makes me laugh, and he makes everyone laugh. He said, if I was half as good as Nick when I was his age, I'd become someone. And we laugh so hard. And John, I love you. But we reminisce, back in the years of when we even did Youth Max program. We did a school kids program, and that was awesome. And leadership, and being on his stages, being on our stages, and sharing stages, and podcasts and interviews, and it's been incredible. And just between the DVD, John Maxwell, the janitor, just everyone along the way where they just planted seeds, and then an amber sparks, and that ignition. Once that fire began, it never went out. What is the fire? The fire is the passion to make a difference in one more person's life. And that's the authentic trunk and 5 branches of Nick. This is what happened to me. This is a history of my thoughts, my feelings, my experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly. This is how I got through it. And this is how you can take those principles and apply it in your life. But there's also an art to the science that John is, to me, one of the greatest communicators that ever lived. He knows he knows how to read the crowd. He knows the science, the dialing of volume, pace, pitch, the words, the extrapolation of words. He could come up with a message right on the spot. You give him a word, he'll give you a 1-minute message. It's just, and I'm like, man, it's amazing. Les Brown is similar in so many ways. He's the content king. I mean, this guy is. So there is these experts in the field that I looked up to and was able to share stages with and podcasts with. I just want you to know that reminiscing now on this episode, you kind of sometimes aspire to be someone on some kind of level. If that's a healthy one, aspiration, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having role models. I've had role models around me and different things for different times of life, mentors as well. And it was definitely one thing to realize that's your dream, that's your story, that's your structure, but how do you get the science? And the last person I bring into this whole conversation is John Hyman. So my teacher aide at high school helped me take notes and helped me with personal hygiene and feeding me at school. Michelle Hyman, and she has a husband called John, who's a coach, a speaking coach, and he actually mentored people to become a coach. And coach people in their business practices and time management, prioritization skills, and all these kinds of things. But he really dialed in his niche was anyone can become a speaker, which is great because everyone has a story, which is great. But you need to explore it, discover it, seal it, and then decide to want to learn the science of how to communicate, how to build a brand, how to market, and that's what he did. So he actually then offered me 10 hours of coaching, one-on-one, that he never charged me for.
Wow.
And he looked at me, and my mom and dad, they never thought that I could ever make a living out of speaking back then. Like, we're European, strict Eastern bloc of go to school, get education, get a 9-to-5 job, climb the ladder, get a house, do some real estate, retire, hopefully get married, hopefully have kids, and die and go to heaven. Like, that's about it. And make sure you give some money to the poor. That's about it. I mean, that was the philosophy of life. But John, he's like, Nick, you're going to become more famous than me. That's what he said to me. He's like, Nick, you're going to write a book. And my parents, they're like, John, do you really think that he can make a living from this? And he's like, speaking? Yeah, he can. And even the principal at my elementary school, Mr. Tharano from McGregor State Primary School, was telling me when I was in grade 7, one day you might become a speaker and you'll be able to charge $5,000, $10,000 for a speech. And I thought he was crazy. But my mom overheard this too. So it's not like it was a new thing, but people saw things in me and kind of planted those seeds of thought. And so I think mentorship, education, awareness, in that self-discovery, not also aspiring to be, that's who I want to become. Right. No, you got to be who you are in your influential space. So that's a lot to unpack in that.
No, that's good.
It's a lot.
So let me backtrack for you now and bring you into my journey relating to you and other speakers, if I could.
Yeah.
So it's been 12 years ago. And since I started working, as your caregiver, and I remember my first traveling with you and then to seeing your speeches, and I would sit in the front. For the most part, I would always sit off to the side or in the front. I think almost every, I probably missed like 5. But if I'm being honest with you, I don't think I've ever shared this with you. I wrestled with the fact of like, why does anybody pay for this? I'll tell you why. Because I'm like, it's just a speech, and like, I know of contracts that people have made, like other speakers, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's a lot, or this and that, You
can make a lot of money.
On a side note, I've always been grateful that you've never made it about the money, because you'd be somewhere else if you did.
Yeah.
And I probably wouldn't be here if that was the case, honestly. So I love that you build on relationship.
That's another topic. So. That's another part to talk about money and career and all that.
But I wrestled with it, and I don't know. I don't think I've ever shared that with you. I'm like, what? Why? And then it took me. I think I had my own experience, like you did, with those 5-6 Christian students, where I realized, man, people are actually being moved by this, and that's when it hit me. Motivational speaking is a thing because people need motivation. Because there's just this, I think this is the unspoken elephant in the room regarding motivational speaking, is that there's so much brokenness in the world and people are actually looking for it. And that's why I'm making such a big deal of the character aspect, because there's 2 different type of person. There's the person like you that I know, that I've seen behind the scenes in your house, and and we've traveled, and there's a character and there's like depth to that. There's a real man here. That's what I'm talking about. But there's the person who gains some skill in some certain thing and can teach on skill, but they can't teach on motivation necessarily in the manner that you could, because of what was built within you through your experiences. And I say that to say, like, people are looking for that. I think that's why you make a big deal of the being authentic, being really used, because real people are looking for real people and looking for the real you, not something that they could have, hey, ChatGPT, like, can you motivate me? Like, it's AI at the end of the day, but what's never going to be replaced is you as a human being, as a man.
Right.
And so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Like, if there was a more grandiose moment, more than the room with the 5 or 6, where you realize, like, oh my goodness, there's I think if I were in your shoes, I'd be like, it would hit me like, oh my God, like, there's so much brokenness, and people need hope.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why you make a big deal of, like, it's, if you can at least just motivate and give hope and bring the gospel, or bring this life-changing truth to one person, then it'd be worth it, but and I think that's the gift that you have, is that it's not just one person, it's millions of people, in person and online. But what was there a bigger moment where you realized, like, man, I for this was probably pre-marriage, and kids are like, I can't stop doing this because people need hope?
It was definitely a speech in front of 300 grade 10 students. In America, you'd call that sophomore. And there were about 300 people there. And I had a 7-minute speech, and I was with Jim Huck, and it was kind of like a day of character building and thinking about your future and all that. And I was not meant to speak. I was just there for support. But they had a gap of time, and he said, what are we going to do at the time? And I said, I'll speak. And that was my 12th time that I spoke, and got up there, and I got it down to two things. When you talk about hope, I reflected that with me. I thought, my parents always said that I'm beautiful the way that I am, and that they love me. And those were the two things that got me through, that I'm loved and that I'm beautiful the way that I am. And I got up there and I shared the most simplest of messages. And the advantage is I have a disability. That's the advantage. Because when someone gets up there and says, I love you, you're beautiful, and you look at someone with arms and legs, even when I saw Reggie Dabbs, before he opened up his mouth and shared his story about how he was a product of his mother's prostitution, who never was in his life. You don't know that about someone until they tell you.
Right.
So you don't know the pain until they tell you the story. For me, I got up there and I got everyone's attention. They're like, oh, he must know what pain is.
Without even saying anything.
Without even saying anything. Yeah. And so that's the advantage. And getting up there, people are a little bit like, oh God, is he going to start making me feel sorry for him? And to break that ice, I actually bring in humor.
Yeah.
And then relax everyone. That's what I learned early on. But when I said you're beautiful and don't give up, and telling them I tried to drown myself, I'm so glad I'm here. And my dreams are to go on Oprah Winfrey show one day. My dreams are to travel the world and speak to as many people as possible and get married and have kids, which all happened. People were just crying when I just said those things just at the beginning. It was like 3, 4, 5 minutes into it. And you could see people wiping their tears. But there was this one girl who, in the middle of the room, just cried. And she couldn't stop crying. She was sorrowfully, deeply weeping and moaning. And everyone was, who is that? And I remember like yesterday, and they all looked at her. She's in the middle of the room. And she noticed it. She was so embarrassed. But then she courageously put up her hand and she said, I'm so sorry. can I interrupt and give you a hug? And she got up, she came around, she came and hugged me, and she cried on this shoulder and whispered in my ear. She was crying first, and then she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. No one's ever told me that I'm beautiful the way that I am. No one's ever told me that they love me. And when I heard that, my first emotion was shock. How could it be that she'd never been told, I love you, or you're beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
And I was in such a shock. I thought to myself, if my parents never told me those things, I wouldn't be here. How important those words were for me. And that's when I knew that day, what if every single person on planet Earth was told, I love you, you're beautiful. And if I could just make a difference in one person's life, it would all be worth it. Because hope is priceless, and each soul is priceless. And that's what's so cool about, for me as a Christian, I want to plant seeds where I can. So I go to corporate America, I go corporate big speaking engagements around the world, which is pretty much from what I've retired from now. But motivation got me into some countries where I'm not allowed to preach, where I go in motivationally first and get their trust, and then I'm able to preach. 87 countries later, 3,500 speeches later, 11 million people later, in person. It's been incredible. But then, and you can make a great living out of that. And the ministry side, I get a salary, and the salary don't even pay for my caregivers. And it's just been an incredible ride where motivation, YouTube videos, books, they eventually find out, it's not just the 5 structural, motivational, resilient things. His faith was the pivotal moment for him. And so from an eternal perspective, when you look at the Bible, we love God and then we love our neighbor, period. There's just nothing more than those two summaries of why we are here and what we need to do. And from a Christianese point of view, your history is his story. And for as long as I'm breathing, my story ain't done yet. And you too. And I've written out 106 different ways in how the human being can suffer. And I'm not here to try to relate to you or you try to relate to me. But it's all of us pointing to the fact that hope is real. It can be found. It can be embraced by everyone. And if I've met rescued, redeemed, healed sex slaves who were sold by their own mothers at 4 years of age at $700, who then later on escape, go through rehabilitation, get redeemed, healed, find a job, they save money, not for a house or a car, but to go back and buy out another sex slave. I mean, when you've been able to be in front of those kinds of people and you realize miracles can come from the darkest places and the most broken people can be the brightest light for other broken people, it's just unbelievable. Not to compare anyone's suffering, it's for you to understand that if God has a plan for a man without arms and legs to be his hands and feet, then God can use anyone. And if he can use my story, he can use your story too. I'm really bullish about some dreams and visions of the future, and wanting to help people, whether they have a disability or not, to share their story, to write a book. I think everyone needs to write a book. I think everyone has something to share with the world. And I think the bottom line is there's so much depression because there's no real true north on the compass of life, of purpose, of value, of identity. And helping people help people it's like the greatest season I'm embarking on now.
That's awesome. That's so good.
It is fun.
So it just makes me think of like that passage in where Paul says to Timothy to be ready in season and out of season, because I think at the end of the day, what you're saying, because I've heard you say that so many times, and it's hitting me now in a different perspective. What you said, it's like that God would call a man with no arms, no legs to be his hands and feet, right, to the world, and to bring hope, to bring a knowledge of Jesus and so on. But that just makes me think like the way that you've approached it is like, I'm not necessarily a motivational speaker. I'm a servant, and my job is to bring his hope, his message of hope, and how his hope or his mercy has gotten you through it.
Yeah.
And whether or not you're able to share it on certain stages, because I've been on those places with you where you can't, but I've never seen you withhold the actual truth of hope, especially behind the scenes, or you wait for the opportunity for somebody to ask.
Q&A.
And it's like, hey, somebody brought it up, and that's your doorway. And I've always appreciated that about you. It's that there's the obedience aspect. There's like a boldness aspect, especially in countries where it's like it's definitely not allowed, and you're like, someone brought it up, I'm going to share it.
Yep.
I'm going to be very bold about it. And I think I think I've just been able to see and enjoy even of the fruit of your obedience in doing that. So I'm very grateful for that. And so thank you so much for that. Like that's really awesome. I think honestly, there's so much to unpack here. I think there's too much to even go into.
There is
one episode, because there's the three things that you mentioned. I think that we can go more in depth in another conversation where you said the dream story and the structure of that, because in how that went alongside you getting mentored.
Yeah.
And then again, going into the aspect of building character and actually doing the hard things, and I think that's one of the things that one of your coaches, Chris, always spoke about, like, do the hard work, go do the hard thing, And so I think that'd be a great conversation one day for us to go into and actually help people going into the hard things as they build their story.
Yeah.
Because like you said, and it's this, your story's not done yet.
Yeah.
While you're living and breathing, your story's not done yet. And so it's always being added on. And so there's always so much more. And so I get to experience that. So I'm so excited for that.
I'm excited as we even reflect, like, not knowing exactly what 2026 looks like. Like this really reverberates in my soul. And I'm thankful that we can start looking back and encouraging you with thoughts provoking you to think and dream and pray over, because you're not an accident. You're not a product of nothing. You are a child of God with a story and a purpose to love God and love your neighbor and make the world a better place. Last time I looked, the world hasn't changed yet. Yeah, there's a lot of world changing still left to do. So we all can be a part of it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I think it's safe to say I want to give you the assignment right now to do those two of the three things, is to write the dream, and start writing your story. I think what we have as our advantage is that we do have social media and we do have these other aspects, and you can slowly start sharing your story, and bring people into, some of those hard moments of your life, and find out the same way Nick did, is that actually it's going to help somebody hear that, to know that they're not alone. And so, and also I think what I want to talk about next time is, at the end of the day, the what would you call it, the glitter and the glamour of speaking was not even your end goal. It was actually the message of hope and bringing the truth and sharing the gospel to as many people as you can, because now, you said you're 42 and you have your wife, you have your kids, and now the posture or the position of your heart changes, the priorities change. But the goal is still the same, is to bring people the message of hope, but how you do it now is changing, And so it's not necessarily traveling so much, because you feel the responsibility and the weight of being present, being a dad, and so on. And so I think that's some stuff that some people actually might benefit from hearing.
Yeah.
Because we can get so stuck on building our things and forget also the things in front of us that matter most.
Yeah.
And so again, if you haven't yet subscribed or followed us, this is the moment to do it, so that you can follow along and get the other episodes that are coming as we go deeper into some of these conversations. And thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Love you. Bye-bye.